Have you ever considered what might be the most challenging and hardest cycle event in the country? Well, in this video, I have the very great pleasure to be interviewing a man who will shortly be undertaking an event which may well be considered to be it. It's the London-Edinburgh-London AUDAX, otherwise known as LEL. Well, here he is, John Swindells. It's a great pleasure to have him here. He's going to tell us all about the London-Edinburgh-London AUDAX. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Andrew. Great to be here.
So tell us, what is this ride that you're going to be doing? How far is it? How did you get into it? Where's it going? How many people are going to be in it?
Sure. Yeah, it's at the very basic end, it's an AUDAX promoted by AUDAX UK. It's a roughly 1,500 kilometre ride, starting at the Davenant Foundation School in Debden, which is just north of London. And it's a roughly straight line through various controls up to Dunfermline, which is just north of the Firth of Forth Bridge, just north of Edinburgh. Right. And then all the way back down again.
Setting off from London, you're going to go up to Edinburgh. You've got these checkpoints along the way. What type of road is it going to be on? Is it going to be on main roads, or are you going through country lanes? And what sort of elevation are you going to be taking? Are you taking on big hills? Are you going over the York Moors, or where's it going?
The route is focused on small roads. It's on proper roads, but not the busy ones. It has to go across the Fens, which is very flat, but can be prone to a bit of wind. Right. And further north, it goes across the Pennines, which is probably the biggest bit of terrain, the biggest challenge for most people to deal with.
Do you know what the ultimate total elevation gain is for the whole ride?
Yeah, there's about 14,000 metres of climbing in total.
14,000 metres of climbing.
Which
on top of 1,500 kilometres.
Exactly, yeah. So it's over 40,000 feet of climbing involved. And that's most of that is in Pennines, so in Yorkshire, and obviously in Scotland.
How on earth do you navigate this? You said that there are these checkpoints. Is it like sportif, where there's arrows and it's directing you? Are there marshallers, or is it something else?
Yeah, if only. No AUDAXes, except for at the controls, there'll be no directional aids on the route. So it's up to you to follow a published route. And this event has what's called a mandatory route, so you must use that.
You're effectively map reading, navigating yourself.
Yeah.
And you're doing that with an ordnance survey map?
Most people nowadays will rely solely on their bike computer.
For this event, what's the maximum the time that you're allowed?
You have 125 hours, which is, if you work it out, is just over 5 days. There is a 100-hour option. So if you want, you can do it in 4 days.
Oh my goodness.
And so I've entered it.
Oh, of course, you've entered before. Of course you have.
I don't think there's many you have, because there's a couple of thousand people who...
So how many people are going to be taking part in this event?
Yeah, a couple of thousand.
All from all around the world?
This is international.
Going back to you're going to do it in 100 hours. So what is that roughly in terms of the speed that you would have to do per riding day?
Well, per day, to fit that in, it works out at about 370 kilometres per day.
370 kilometres per day?
Yeah, which
normally... Compute that.
Yeah.
Will this be one of your hardest achievements?
Well, yes, it will certainly be the biggest ride I'll have ever done.
You talked about a strategy of hare and tortoise, and that's quite an interesting concept. So I was thinking, what do you mean by that? Is there two different ways that you could approach this ride?
Yeah, so going back to Mike, he plays what I'd call the tortoise game, of riding not so quickly, but not stopping so much.
So he just rides, he just goes at a more maybe a slower pace, but just keeps going.
He will have sleep, but it's in smaller blocks and at random points. So he won't worry about riding through the night if that's what suits him, and so on. Right. Whereas I think the only way I'm going to do this is to be a hare, which is where I'll ride faster. So I'll be aiming towards the upper speed limit, if you were, of an AUDAX, which is 30 kilometres per hour. Whereas my moving average speed, I'm aiming for around 26, 27 kilometres per hour, which is still much faster than you need to do it in the time limit.
I see.
But that means that then I can hopefully get around sort of 15 hours of riding in a day, which gives me a lot of rest time.
I think the next question that comes out of that is
food.
Food. Exactly. Yeah. How on earth do you keep yourself fed during such a long event, and you're on the bike for such a long time? Are you eating on the bike? Do you stop and have a 3-course meal in a pub? I mean, what's your strategy?
Well, that is one amazing thing about LEL, which is that the amazing volunteers and organisers for it are laying on a buffet at every single control.
So does that mean that you won't be eating while you're actually on the ride? You concentrate on riding, you're not taking...
Exactly.
The preparation and training, John, you said anybody who's relatively fit can just jump on their bike and go, but I don't totally buy into that. I mean, you've got to have done a level of training. I had a look at your stats on your STRAVA account, and there's a link to that in the comments below if you want to follow John. Unbelievable amount of mileage that you do. You do need to build up some sort of endurance. What have you done something specific? Is there, in fact, a requirement from AUDAX that you need to prove something in order to be able to enter this event?
That's a very good question, because some long distance events do require you to have completed certain other distances previously.
Right.
This one you don't. For this, I have done what's called the Super Randonneur this year, which is doing a 200k, 300k, a 400k and a 600k.
Obviously you need a bike for this event. Is it a particularly special type of bike that you've got, or is it just a regular road bike?
It is effectively a regular road bike. It's quite aerodynamic. When I'm riding it, I do find I can cycle into crosswinds and headwinds quite effectively, and it's fairly light, so it's fairly easy going uphill as well.
This is an Oro Terra SL, so it's got an Ultegra group set, 36 tooth chainring at the front, the small one, and at the back the biggest cog is, I think, a 32, so it gives me a little bit more than a 1-to-1 ratio, which should be plenty to get me up any of the steep climbs. These are Kinetic K1 aero wheels, fairly deep section, but they're very wide, and I've got a wide set of tyres sitting on top of those as well. The tyres I've got are 28mm Rubino Pro tyres, which I found to be very puncture resistant, very hard wearing. So these are very simple clip-on mudguard, which I may not take depending on the weather. You certainly don't have to use tri-bars for these sort of events because it's not really about speed, but when you're going long distances it does help. Two reasons: one, to have a different position to ride on, just to vary it, and there's also the distinct aero advantage in being tucked on the bike like that. Some people can't hold that position for very long, but I can ride like that for a few hours on and off without any problem. So electronically, I've got a rear light mounted here on this little bit of metalwork I've created, front light under here, and I've also got my head unit here to do all the recording and navigation, and for some numbers to look at while I'm cycling along, like power, heart, keep an eye on how hard I'm working. And underneath here is a camera. Water is obviously the most important thing to be drinking, and here's my thermos flask, usually with a hot drink, so a coffee in the morning to get me going, and a cup or two of tea along the way. And I've also got a pump here, of course. You should never go anywhere without a pump. And I've got a very clever what's called a rehook tool, developed by a local company in Norfolk, and that's used to help with putting the chain back on the bike. These are Shimano SPD pedals, and they are usually used for off-roading because they're very easy to clip in and out. If you're doing a lot of road riding, you'll normally use a road cleat and a road pedal, which gives you better contact, better power transfer than these pedals. But the advantage with these pedals is that the shoe you use them with is very easy to walk around in. Because LEL is so well supported at the controls, I'm going for the minimal option, which is I've gone for what's called a seat pack. So this is a Blackburn seat pack. It's a two-piece unit. So there's the shell, which fixes to the bike, and then there's this waterproof bag which contains all the stuff. Flip-flops is one thing I'm going to have ready, because you aren't allowed to wear your bike shoes in any of the controls, so you've got to take them off. So flip-flops, stashes away quite nicely. When you're done. Right, so in this top tube bag here, I keep a few snacks and bits and pieces. Flapjack, a gel, only really for emergencies. And I've got some anti-inflammatory gel here as well. That's not for eating. And a multi-tool for any on-the-road emergencies. This little bag was bought online, but the bike and this, what's called a seat pack, I got those from my local bike shop in North Walsham. Oh yeah, that's Dr. Wheelgood.
All there is left for us to say really, John, is all the best.
Thank you very much.
We will be following you, and let's hope that it all goes to plan and nothing, drastic happens.
Yeah, keep an eye out for me. Thanks so much.
All the best. Thank you.
Cheers.